Hello, hello, hello.
Well, hello, James. Hello, everybody. It's Monday night once again. We are
Happy
back
Monday
again.
indeed.
Yes. And I obviously am Craig Stewart, and you are.
I'm James Mathewson. I think I'm James Mathewson. You referred to me on your Instagram story as a media juggernaut, and that is not the James Mathewson I recognise. But I have been busy today, and I think I understand you pointing that out. But I'm a Z-lister, Craig. I'm a humble Z-lister. That's all I am.
Well, let's just say you are the co-host of the That's Class podcast, which is quickly
What I'm
becoming
known
one of
for.
the most influential podcasts in the UK, if not across the globe.
Global.
But yeah, so we're back again. I hope everyone's at home having a lovely Monday evening. I see we've got Beth in the chat there, who's just had all the way from Portugal, might I add, who's had homemade quiche, new potatoes, and salad for tea.
Oh, come
Top
on,
notch.
Beth. That's not fair. You're teasing me before I've had anything. I've not had my dinner. Have you had your dinner? Have you had your tea?
No, I mean, this is the thing. When you're putting in the hard yards, covering and putting the grind in, the preparation for this podcast, food comes second. But no, how's your day been? Because
Interesting day. Very long. We've been covering, obviously, developments that we're going to talk about. But I started the day by doing LBC at about 10 to 7 this morning. Which, look, I know that's not like a ridiculously early shift, but it's easy work. It's only a 15-minute piece. But I did that. Then I did 6 BBC appearances today. So what will often happen with the BBC is you'll do one, so that they all operate as kind of their own entities, right? So like if you think about the regional BBC offices, if you think about like the Scottish one, the international news station, all of these stations, as soon as they see you get booked on one of them, producers from the other ones will think, there's a shortcut. Not that they're being lazy. It's an efficient way to do it, but they're like, there's someone we could get on ours as well. So it tends to be like dominoes falling. So I started the day with BBC International News TV and finished the day just before that. I hope I finished the day. It might be something later on, but I finished with BBC Ulster in Northern Ireland. And then if you do BBC Ulster, you normally get asked to do BBC Foyle, which is kind of the unofficial Republican side as opposed to the unionist side. So yeah, very long day, very interesting, but lots of political developments, Craig.
Nice. Well, I'll definitely be picking your brains as to what's been going on in the Westminster bubble. But I think my day has been a little bit different to yours. I've been at work today, so I actually haven't had too much of a chance to get across all of the goings on. I know it's been a busy day, and a lot of people are wanting to know. I mean, the title of our episode is this the end of Keir Starmer? I mean,
yeah,
maybe we won't get to the bottom of that day. We'll have a good chat about it. But no, I tell you what, right? I've still got my window open here. It has been a glorious day in Northumberland. Not sure what it's been like in Edinburgh, but shorts while walking my daughter to the childminders.
Wow, you're getting the pins out already.
Well, I mean, they're like milk bottles at the minute, not
Listen, give the people what they want. I'm sure that's class listeners will agree with me. But you've got to get the legs out as soon as there's the slightest bit of sun. Otherwise, you're not a true Northumbrian, are you?
Yeah, and so I mean, it's that time of the year. I mean, sun's coming out. My wife's downstairs now. She's stewing. I don't know what she's doing with some rhubarb that my mum picked from the allotment. Something's going on down there, being stewed or turned into hopefully a crumble.
Rub it in. You're out there living the good life, and here I am. I cracked my window open for a bit with the sunshine coming through, but the smell of cannabis coming from the street below was so overwhelming that I decided to shut my window again. But this is city living versus the good life, isn't it?
I tell you what, James, and that is the responsible response to that sort of situation. And just while we're at it, I'm having a beer, but it's a drinking responsibility beer. Okay,
at 0%. Have you gone sober like me? Have you given up the demon drink like me altogether, or is this a little test?
Well, no. What it is obviously we've got the production staff in the background that need to be maintaining operations there. We've got viewers in Tibet, in Nepal,
Yeah.
all across
You
the
feel the
world who
pressure.
need me at my sharpest.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah.
Well, that's why
But
I'm
yeah,
on
so
the diet sodas containing a multitude of chemicals that I can't even pronounce. But for some reason, it makes me feel alert and present. But it's not the only thing that's got my adrenaline flowing today. I think generally the news cycle at the moment, there's little cracks of change, isn't there, coming through? Like it's not. Is it just me? Am I noticing kind of? We had Orban in Hungary. We had the victory there that felt like the tide was turning a bit. Trump seems to be absolutely weighed down with his chaos in Iran. And then obviously the Epstein stuff isn't going away. But the impact of that with the Mandelson situation here in the UK as well has got the UK government and Keir Starmer in a bind.
yeah, I think obviously we're on the 7th episode now of this, and I think the majority of these episodes, the majority of these podcasts that we've done, has been dominated by the chaos that is that unfolds under the wrath of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I think this week, I think the chaos continues. The Strait is open, the Strait is closed, the Strait is open. So I think, we're at that point now where, with so much stuff going on domestically with Keir Starmer, a lot of pressure on him today. That I'm guessing that's what you have been on doing the
Yes.
media rounds this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's, to be honest, the timeline of events and trying to work out at what point, all these different events were unfolding. But what's your thoughts, James? Is it worth giving like a little brief breakdown for maybe people who don't quite understand what's happened?
Yeah.
And understand why Keir Starmer's had a bit of pressure on him, to say the least, a little bit of pressure. But yeah,
Well,
fill me in.
we can travel back in time a bit if that helps everyone. We can go back to last year when Keir Starmer needed to appoint a new ambassador to America, to the US. And it was no mean feat, obviously, as we pointed out, the chaos with Donald Trump is crazy, right? It's constant. So whoever this was going to be, this character, they needed to be someone who could deal with Donald Trump. The perfect or seemingly perfect solution at the time that was presented to Starmer was one Peter Mandelson, who had been a government minister through the Blair years, very famous character in the Labour Party, and indeed, I think, in British politics. Lots of people know his name. Mandelson had to resign previously from both Blair and Brown governments because of scandals, normally connected to his relationships with private business and how he had used that to enrich himself or enrich friends. Now, obviously, jumping forward to where we are now, it came out when the Epstein files were released that Peter Mandelson had a much more significant relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile, than he had led people to believe. In fact, he had continued that relationship, and this was the key thing, well after Epstein had been even sent to prison and done a prison term. So he'd continued being friends with him. Mandelson's partner, I think his name's Ronaldo, he had actually had £10,000 as a gift from Jeffrey Epstein. He'd given him that money. So there was all sorts of ties. It was really messy. Mandelson steps down. Starmer, flips and says it was a bad choice, a bad decision. But now the fallout that we're seeing continue is all around the vetting process, right? So SV vetting that takes place in the civil service is done by the security services in Britain. And it's basically to thoroughly vet someone. And the question that had been asked through the whole process was, how on earth did Mandelson pass the vetting? Well, now we know he didn't. He didn't pass that vetting. But then, of course, the question is, how on earth was he still appointed if he didn't pass the vetting? According to Keir Starmer and to Downing Street and the government, they weren't informed that he had failed that vetting process, which is, I mean, I agree with Keir Starmer. If that is the case, if that's the truth and he's telling the truth, that is insane. So now the Foreign Office, who were in charge of that process and in charge of not telling Keir Starmer, allegedly, the top civil servant there, a guy called Ollie Robbins, he has had to be sacked. He's gone, but he's not very happy about it. So he's testifying tomorrow to the Foreign Select Committee and Foreign Affairs Committee, which is, I think chaired by Emily Thornberry, who some people might know as was once a contender for the Labour leadership. Emily's a powerhouse. I wouldn't want to, if somebody told me I had to go on a Foreign Affairs Committee and answer questions against her, I'd be very scared at the best of times. Ollie Robbins will be doing that tomorrow. And there's the potential that he could blow open the government. He could really sink them. Because if he says, I have evidence that, I was told not to tell them by somebody in government, or there was some other thing at play here, then it could be a real mess that they find themselves in. So that's been the fallout today. Starmer's been in Parliament. He's been in the House of Commons, getting ahead of it and trying to make a statement. He was laughed at openly by a lot of people, a lot of MPs. A lot of MPs coming and criticising him, from Lee Anderson to Diane Abbott, all criticising him openly. So it's not where they want to be. Put it this way, 2 weeks out from these significant elections in Scotland, Wales, and of course in England in the councils as well. It's not a good situation to find himself in.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Not like I say, going into those elections, which are massive, and already, with whatever Poland's been coming out, Labour not particularly in a strong position. So, do you know the select committee that you mentioned that Emily Thornberry will be running? Is that essentially it's sort of like a courtroom style setup? I know it's not obviously in a courtroom, but where MPs will go in, or people will go in and get a bit of a grill and get down to the bottom of particular issues and find out what the truths are. And that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. So you'll see, a lot of people will be familiar with these rooms. The Prime Minister answers one, I think, maybe every month now. I'm not sure. But there's various committees, various select committees, and they're cross-party. So they're made up of representatives from different parties. The chairships of each one are voted for. So you have to be voted onto them by other MPs. Emily Thornberry is in charge of that. She's previously been shadow foreign secretary and stuff. So she knows the foreign office brief quite well. That's why she's there. But they're influential committees. They are there to scrutinize everybody and anybody. And I think you can turn down. It's not like America where you get subpoenaed and you're made to come before legally, but it's not wise to turn it down. That's why we've seen people as powerful as Rupert Murdoch and all sorts of characters brought in front of these committees and made to answer questions. So that is the place to do it. And of course, Ollie Robbins, this senior civil servant, former senior civil servant, will be facing the questions tomorrow. And he has nothing to lose now. His career's gone. So if there is something on Starmer, if there's something on, I don't know, Morgan McSweeney, his former advisor, if there's a reason why the information was kept from Starmer, or perhaps that's not even true and he has evidence to suggest it's not, we will hear it tomorrow.
So obviously it's been a big day already, Keir Starmer going into Parliament addressing MPs. How do you think that's been received overall? Do you think he's in a better position now than what he was this time last night? Obviously, to me, not being fully across the situation and like watching everything that's going on, it seems very complex, and it seems like there's a lot of different things going on at the same time. And at this stage, anything really can happen. But what's your feeling of comparing this evening? Is Keir Starmer going to bed a happier man than what he did last night?
It's a really good question. I think for Starmer and his supporters and the people who are still standing by him, I think it's been the best the day could be. I think he got through it relatively well. I think he did his best in the Commons, and I think there was bound to be the jeering and the laughing and all that from the other side. But I think his backbenchers, or most of his at least semi-supportive backbenchers, will be on side, I think, with him saying, I'm furious about this. I didn't know. I wasn't told, and that's wrong, and I should be. And he started off by taking responsibility, and he mentioned Epstein. He mentioned the files. He mentioned the fact that that victims have been failed and that he failed them. So he's already taken more responsibility than Donald Trump's ever even considered taking for his prolific involvement. Whatever the truth of that may be, his mentioning in those files. So, look, I'm in two minds about this. I want Starmer to go. I would like him to be gone. I think the Labour Party needs new leadership, and I think this government has been one of wasted opportunities, to be honest. I think it's lost a lot of ground just not doing anything of significance. So I think there needs to be new vision. Do I think that should happen tomorrow? No. I think probably the sensible thing is to let him own the local election results. And I just hope to God, my real hope is that he, after those results, if they're as bad as they look like they're going to be from the polling, that he sits down with himself, with his family, and says, did the best I could. That's it. I'm out. And he sets a time frame, and there's a full leadership contest. That's what I would like to see. But do I think that's going to happen? I don't know, because the man seems quite firm in his belief that he should still be there and that he has an electoral mandate. So maybe that delusion will continue, mate.
I mean, but there's one thing there, James, to pick away, and I think the determination and the willingness to stand in the face of it in point blank. I mean, if there was, and this is just purely on feel here, if he did know about the failed vetting process for Peter Mandelson, would he have reacted in this way? And I'm not quite sure he would. Yeah, I don't know. Like to be so determined and to be so to face it up front in the way he has. Again, this just comes off feel. I think everything's recorded these days, or at least everything should be recorded these days. Yeah. You would think there would be a sign-off procedure somewhere when it comes to security vetting. Someone like where did the book stop?
Well, this is the problem. He's a stickler for process, and I just don't see him. Yeah, the process has been wrong, and he's owning up to it now and stuff. But I just don't see him being the kind of guy to openly lie about this. That might sound naive, I don't know, but like I'd be amazed. He's a lot of things, but I don't think he's a liar. I don't think he's somebody who likes to come out and have something in his head that's true and openly lie about it. He's a lawyer, so he's good at bending the truth and presenting it in the way he wants to. But I don't think he would think it was right. And the thing that drives him is public service. And people can say, no, it's not. They can argue with me on that. But I don't support his leadership. But what I will say is he is public service driven. You wouldn't be there for any other reason. He's not gaining that. What did he get? A few free suits and a nice pair of glasses. Like, it's a lot of stress to consider for those benefits when he could be making absolute bank as a private barrister, as he was before. I just think, honestly, I think what's happened is he hasn't paid attention. He hasn't been across the detail as he should have been. The machinery and the operations of state have been wrong. They give you the ability to interpret policy as you wish, right? So these civil servants have interpreted the fact that they don't need to tell him, like that's potentially in the wording. So they haven't told them, and nobody's told them. And whether that's happened intentionally or not, I don't know. We'll find out, I think, in due course. But I don't think whatever he's done, I don't think he's done it intentionally. And if this is where we've ended up, this is the outcome, right? It's a scandal. It's dominated everything. He would not have wanted to end up in this situation. It's, and he knows there's no way you wouldn't have been caught doing this. So I just can't think it's intentional.
No, but I think that's where the difficulty is for a lot of people. If it isn't intentional and he didn't know, he should have made sure that he was across it. He should have made sure that.
Then incompetency, isn't it? Yeah.
When it comes to when someone, I don't know if I was having this conversation with you or if it was my parents, but I mean, I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, I've come into politics in the last couple of years, and so Peter Mandelson, Tony Blair, all the goings-ons of back in the day, But what I did know when I seen that appointment, Peter Mandelson, I thought, hang on, isn't that the guy? Like, I know that name, and I don't know that name for good reasons. And that's with absolutely zero. You just knew that it was a name that had controversy around it. So, if that's the sort of person that you're putting into office, you make sure.
Yeah, I was on listen, mate. When I was on BBC today, I was on 5 Live at one point, and I was on with someone who was there to defend Starmer and not so much Mandelson, but they were kind of defending Mandelson. And the argument they made that was staggering to me was that Mandelson arguably was the best appointment because him and Trump have Epstein in common. And that's a benefit to us as a country. Oh, great. I tell you what, right? Oh, that guy who's implicated with the paedophile, who's his mate. We've got another mate of the same paedophile We could send him across, and then together, because they already know each other from the paedophile they have in common, then maybe we could get some advantage from that as a country. Come on, man. What are we playing at? There has to be, and for Keir Starmer to make such a fuss about morals and moral high ground and cleaning up the mess of Boris Johnson, taking on Partygate and Liz Truss's corruption, to say all of that and then let this slide, it's just a rookie mistake.
It blows my mind that it boils back down to the fact that there's a man. We've got a president of the United States who was in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is in the Bible. It is astonishing. It's astonishing. You know, and you know, it's funny actually. The whole, I know it's been well covered, but the you know, the Trump posting the image of him dressed as Jesus, and that really was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. A lot of people were upset about Trump posing as Jesus. What they weren't upset about was Trump blowing up a school with 168 kids and teachers in it.
Yeah.
So
because as we know, Jesus Christ famously said, didn't he? Do unto others as you wouldn't want to be done unto yourself. Like, at what point do these people, and I know we've talked about this before with religion, but at what point are they able to look at the scripture of Jesus Christ? And whether you believe Jesus Christ is a divine being or not, I don't. I believe he's a historical figure. But like, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, Jesus Christ is a Palestinian socialist Jew. And that alone is something they would have crucified him for. So the irony of these people pretend to be Christians. And Pete Hegseth, I don't know if you've seen him recently. You know, the Secretary for War, as they've renamed him. Hegseth's been doing various Bible quotes that he seems to just be making up out of his arse, like pulling them out of thin air. And everyone's like, I don't remember that bit in the Bible.
I tell you what, James, I'm really disappointed now on reflection because we have got a nonsense of the week selected. We'll probably save it for a little bit later, but a really solid second place would have been Pete Hegseth reciting the Pulp Fiction, and I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger. Like, thinking, like, seriously presenting that as if it was a passage from the Bible, when in fact Quentin Tarantino made it up for the movie while Samuel L. Jackson was about to execute someone.
Literally, yeah.
And
Ezekiel,
this is the man.
The righteous man is beset on all sides by that entirely invented. I think he invented Ezekiel as well, is what he called it, isn't it?
And this is the brilliant thing. I know we're jumping across a little bit. We've crossed the pond a little bit, but you see it here in the UK. This hiding behind Christianity and using Christianity as a vehicle for politics and a vehicle for Islamophobia and racism.
Yeah,
it's, you know, and it's funny because you never quite see the the classic church going types out on these marches running behind and shouting at asylum hotels.
I don't think
love thy neighbor and all that.
I don't think half these protesters or Tommy Robinson or indeed anyone have ever been into a church. If they went into a Church of England church, I mean, I was raised Catholic. I was Christian Catholic, and Catholicism's always had like a very like kind of repent kind of message about it. You know, you are sinful, you are wrong. You know, that was kind of always the message I got growing up with it. But the Church of England it's very happy clappy, and as my grandparents used to call them, happy clappy Christians, where they're all about love. And if you chat to a vicar, and you say, "Oh, I don't like this bit in the Bible," say, "Don't worry about that bit. That bit's ridiculous." Yeah. Or, they're a lot more tolerant and accepting. And for them to be, kind of taking a stand, as the Archbishop of Canterbury has and others have before, against people like Tommy Robinson and saying, "You do not represent us," is madness. When they've just discovered their Christianity in recent years. The only reason they've discovered Christianity is because of the American import of Christian nationalism, the likes of Pete Hegseth, the likes of these insane individuals who love the symbology from the Crusades. And again, what is that? Why is that the reason? It's because it's about attacking Muslims and taking on Islam.
Yeah, and you see it wildly on social media, the Knights Templar stuff, all that vibe. It's very interesting, James, right? Because there's the very same thing around women and girls, and like using that as, and don't get me wrong, of course there's issues, but using violence against women and girls and seeing those support groups, so like feminist groups, and like I said, the groups that support violence against women and girls, coming out and speaking against these people who are in the streets pretending to be the protectors of women and children. It's the exact same thing as the Church of England coming out and standing against Tommy Robinson, because they are hijacking. They are hijacking those movements. They don't care about those movements, and they're using them for their own gain and their own hatred, and to push people out who they want out. And it's just grisly.
So much more damage that they're doing as well. And that's what charities like Rape Crisis, who do a phenomenal job. I mean, they are the main provider of kind of victims of sexual assault survivor services. They do an incredible job. 100 charities along with Rape Crisis have come out and said, not in our name. You're not doing this in our name. It's not about that. And you remember the at the Epping Hotel, where they were all protesting outside, all these supposedly concerned individuals. And when they were arrested at those protests for violence, 40% of those arrested had previous charges for domestic violence. So don't tell me that you're bothered about the safety of women and girls when it comes to Asian men, when you're going home and battering your wife. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. And then on top of that, of course, as well, we have that double standard of, we care about women and girls, but we're going to go to Dubai and we're going to go to a Muslim-run country under Sharia law and live there so that we don't have to pay tax. It's staggering, mate. Beggars belief.
Well, I think while we're on this, I think actually there's a little bit of awareness we could raise specifically on violence against women and girls. And I think actually there'll be a podcast episode that we'll do specifically on this, right? Because it's obviously such a huge issue, and I think it's good to talk about it. And when you mentioned Rape Crisis, I actually reference their research quite a lot in some of the content that I make, and I'll just read out some of these stats here, because just to address some of the myths around who is committing these offences and where it's all coming from, and why victims suffer so much, right? And it's quite staggering, right? Bearing in mind, this is not my stats. This is Rape Crisis, and they've done the research. 1 in 4 women have been raped or sexually assaulted since the age of 16. 1 in 4. That's just one stat. 1 in 6 children have been sexually abused. There's more. 2 in 5 rapes against women are carried out by their partner or ex-partner, and 6 in 7 rapes against women. 6 in 7 rapes against women are carried out by someone they know.
Wow.
6 in 7.
And
it's not someone hiding in a bush.
No, it's not. And that's the thing that whilst those crimes do happen, of course they do. And that's the crimes that the likes of Tommy Robinson and people want to point to, right? They want to say, oh, it's attackers in the street hiding down an alleyway with a mask on. It's not, right? It's somebody's boyfriend at a party. It's someone, and that brings us on to this stat about the Rape Academy, the online Rape Academy that's just been revealed online. And this is staggering, mate. And the discourse around this, so disappointingly, because the number was put out that 62 million site visits had taken place in a month. So in a month, 62 million individual visits were made to this website, on which people were posting videos of their wife while they were asleep, how they had drugged them, tips on how to drug them without knowing it, and then filming themselves raping their wives. And I can't remember the exact date, but actually the rape of a wife or a spouse was only made a criminal offense. I'm sure you can check it and fact check me. I'm sure it was either the 60s or the 70s. But up until that point, it wasn't a criminal offense. You couldn't rape your wife or spouse, which was monstrous. But we are seeing now just how wrong that. What's the date, mate? It'll buy your face.
1991.
Are you kidding? And I thought it was the 60s or 70s, and that was bad enough. 1991. 3 years before I was born, mate.
Yeah.
That's insane. And to think now we are seeing a website where people are openly raping their wives and their partners and teaching other people how to do it. And the discourse wasn't, oh my God, this is horrific. The discourse was from some men, oh, it's not 62 million men, it's 62 million site visits. Imagine that you hear about that happening and your first response is, let me just go into the semantics of the numbers and let me contest them rather than object horror at what other men are doing and the anger at other men. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, so I actually made a video about that over the weekend, about just that, about the numbers and the website, and I actually looked in a little bit further, right? And there is more to it. So from what I could see, the report that got put out was the visits, and bear in mind, 100% what you say, like the whole thing's horrendous, whole thing's horrific. There's a website, it's essentially a porn website, and there was 62 million visits to this website, right? In a month. So this is a website that's got serious traffic. And one of the sections in there was like, is it sleep or something? I can't quite remember what the category was called. A category called sleep. And you go into that, and then that it's like going on Tesco groceries and like the date rape drug being an option. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like crazy. And like I said, and off the back of that, there was a Telegram group, I think, that had like over 1,000 members in it, and that was where these men were sharing tips and videos and all these different things and uploading these videos to the wider website. And this is a. I mean, I don't know where this ranks in terms of like how much 62 million visits is in comparison to
other porn sites.
But like that is it's insane. If there was two people. If there was two people messaging each other on WhatsApp, right, or one person that was doing this, it would be a horrific story. Well, it was. I can't quite remember what the lady's name was in France. There was a massive story.
Giselle Pellico. Yeah.
Horrendous. Horrific. And that's one person who's been like had a life destroyed.
Yeah.
That's happening to 1,000 at least women.
And it must be absolutely terrifying because being a woman's hard enough. And I know we've talked about this regularly, right? And the fear of being outside at night, the fear of safety and security on your own, all of those things. But to think that the person in your life who you're able to trust the most and who is meant to love you and care for you, all those things you hear in wedding vows, right? In sickness and health, all of those things. And yet, those were the people who behind their back are saying, I want to rape this woman. I know someone who's a cam girl, right? She works as a online sex worker. And she's been writing a book about it recently and the process of it. So one of the most disheartening things she deals with, right, isn't abuse at her. It's men regularly, like daily, logging in to her chat and saying, I want to show you, rather than showing themselves, I want to show you my wife. She's asleep. I want you to insult her. I want you to say that you're better than her. All of these things. And she said that is a common kink now as labeled online. The internet has been good for some things, mate. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But it has also magnified the absolute worst of society. At one time, these people, and I know people say it's not the internet isn't the problem, it's the people. It is. But these people at one time were isolated. Now, not only can they speak to each other and communicate and share the worst of what they're doing, but a website like that, the biggest fear for me was that it's a gateway. So people are going on that website to watch porn, and then they're finding a section called sleep, and there's a gateway through for them to get into that stuff, and then obviously to be able to be recruited into this Telegram chat and to commit the crimes themselves to create more content. That should be absolutely terrifying to everybody and anybody. I just don't understand why some people were, so resistant to the facts about it.
Yeah, 100%. Like the talk about the numbers rather than the impact it's actually having on women trying to live their lives. But you know what it is? The conversations like this are never too far away from the toxic masculinity conversation. And when I made the video, I made it as from the point of view of as a girl dad, and that's because that's what I am. And my point was like, you should raise your daughter a feminist, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about how I can raise my daughter and make sure that
Yeah.
she's got the best possible chance of feeling her self-worth and not putting up for these things. And I see feminism as one of those.
Yeah.
Well, not, it's not just a tool. I think that's laid down, but the way you live your life in it, as a feminist, I think can only be a positive for a woman. But actually, once I posted the video, I actually thought to myself, I felt a bit. I wasn't disappointed. I don't quite know what the word is, but I sort of regretted not referencing boys more, because I was posting it as a point of view as a girl dad. I thought it may have come across as if I was putting the not putting the blame on women, but almost like women should do better to protect us. Because actually, if I was a boy dad, I would be saying the same thing. I want to raise my son as a feminist.
Yeah,
and I think that's an important thing, because men should be feminists as well. It's
but so few parents are doing that. That so many of them are, of course, but I feel like there is that emphasis of like, let's raise women to be defensive and protected and safe, but we should also be raising boys to be feminists. It's as simple as that. And when they say, oh, they're brainwashing young boys into being feminists, yeah, they should be. Yeah, they should be, because feminism's just about equality. That's all it is. It's the definition is the equality between the sexes. I don't care what you think it is in your head. I don't care what you've made it out to be, and it being about feminazis and about like women dominating the world, whatever. We are so far away from that being a reality that it's laughable. So the fact that you would hold off on educating your son in a feminist way because of that fear is ludicrous in itself. I've never understood it. But and I even heard a good one yesterday from a friend that we hear time and time again when you say goodnight to friends. Now, I have some great women friends in Edinburgh, and when we're out for the night and we say goodbye to each other or whatever, it's always we'll get home safe. I'll always say to them, get home safe. Text me when you're home. Let me know when you get back. Why are we saying that to women, but we're not saying to men? Get home safe. Don't rape anyone on the way. Don't attack anyone on the way. Seriously, like, do you know what I mean?
I know.
Why aren't we the kind of cognitive dissonance required for us to be like, no, it's actually all right. We need to be nice to men, but we need to put the emphasis on women protecting themselves. Blows my mind.
Or like we just said, when you get home, don't be a dick to your wife.
Yeah.
Because that's probably more likely that the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a wild one, isn't it? And I think what I struggle with is when you hear you hear feminism being referenced, and then it's, oh, they hate men. Oh, feminists hate men. And that and actually, I've seen it quite a lot online of women doing that and being like women who are anti-feminist, because it's like, and it's such but
it's the same. There will always be someone, and then they'll point to them. It will always be lucrative to be a pick-me, right? To be one of the women who says, I'm not like other girls. I'm actually anti-feminist. I would happily throw women under the bus for the sake of male validation, because male validation is a powerful thing. And often younger women, especially when they're not mature enough to understand even what they want, because none of us are mature enough. I think your frontal lobe doesn't bloody develop till you're like 25. So, often people are doing this before they even understand the impact of it themselves. And I see this, and actually got a good segue here for you, mate, into our nonsense of the week. Because I think when you're young, right, and you're in politics and you get into politics strongly, your thoughts and ideas will develop. Now, this isn't me saying that every young person shouldn't have a political view because it's going to change. But your life experience does change your views. I think you become more pragmatic. There's often that cliche that you start off as a socialist and then you become right-wing with age, right? But that doesn't seem to be the case right now. It seems a lot more young people are starting off being right-wing and quite right-wing and then shifting as they grow up. None other of a great example of this is Reform UK's youngest council leader in the country, who is 19 years old. And I believe he is relevant to our next segment, if you want to lead it in.
I think
I'm going to plug my laptop in while you do it as well. Otherwise, you're going to lose me.
Well, what I'll do is I'm going to just send out a quick apology. I hope you can still hear me, James, because, I think, as I've discussed in previous episodes, I've been quite frivolous. The purse strings have been opened once again midweek, and I've spent quite a lot of the petty cash on more super enhanced AI, voice recognition, HD, 3D engineering. And here it is. And it is specifically just to make this experience for all the viewers across the world a more enhanced experience. So here we are.
Well, I'm very
We are
excited
at
for
our
this.
we are at our first segment, and here it is. Nonsense of the week. And there it is. It's time. It is time for nonsense of the week.
Nonsense of the week. And that, I must say, you need to get into voiceover acting, mate. That was like, you could be the next Morgan Freeman, I think, after that.
I'll do like March of the Penguins or something. I'll take over from Attenborough. I'll take over the nature programs. But no, I'll tee it up. We're here. It's nonsense of the week. As everyone would have just heard, we've got a brand new jingle. It cost thousands, tens of thousands. The production team have been in overdrive all week to try and get that out. We went down to the wire, let me tell you. I mean, it's minutes before we went live. It was go, go, go. But here we are. And we've got a clip lined up. As James just mentioned quite kindly, it is Reform UK youngest. I think actually he's the youngest mayor.
Youngest council leader in the country. Yeah.
Council leader in the country. And here he is, George Finch, interviewed by The Times.
Me. It's about the people out there. Hang on. Is that okay? Can you see that if he's jumping up? If you've got power, you can't just wield it willy-nilly. You have to be sensible about it. That's something I know as leading this council. You know, yes, I'm young, but I'm not just going to go around saying, right, that's it, you're doing this, this is being done. You have to just take a step back, understand what it's like to be in charge of a council. No 19-year-old's done it before. And yes, some people might not agree with reform policies or our policies. Councillors might not agree. But what I would say to that is, get better at elections. Being in this chair, being in this office is amazing. But if a general election comes and I get asked to stand as a candidate, that will be the biggest honour of my life. I will have the same ethos: honesty, integrity, and transparency. Because if you haven't got those, what's the point of doing anything?
Well, and what I'll do is, just straight off the back of that, and this will be great for people who've seen Ricky Gervais's smash hit sitcom The Office. They'll instantly see similarities. But what I've done is I've put together a little video which I uploaded to social media today. But let's fire it off just to give people a little bit of a reference point.
Let's see it.
Why we find it so funny.
A Reform Council leader, you tell me.
It's not about me. It's about the people out there.
David Brent is refreshingly laid back for a man with such responsibility.
Yeah. If you've got power, you can't just wield it willy-nilly. You have to be sensible about it. That's something I know as leading this council.
Is it difficult to remain authoritative and yet so popular?
Well, no, that wasn't my question.
I will have the same ethos: honesty, integrity, and transparency.
People say I'm the best boss. They go, we've never worked in a place like this before. You're such a laugh. You get the best out of us. And I go, c'est la vie. If that's true, excellent.
Oh my God, mate. That is so... It's not even like parody level. There's lack of self-awareness.
I've got so many questions. Why, for those who are only listening with audio, he's been interviewed at his desk, right? He's got his dog there, which, fair enough, people bring the dogs to work. But that straight away, again, everyone remembers the David Brent scene when he comes in with Nelson, the dog. Which straight away, brilliant. It's like such a great reference. And then also, he has these wooden ornaments of bears. One's chained up, one's like this dancing bear.
I think it's the symbol. It's the council symbol. So
is that what it is?
It is. I can't remember which council is it. Warwickshire, I think.
Warwickshire.
It's Warwickshire. And I think it's something. This is how nerdy I am, mate. But I think it's something to do with Warwick Castle, because they have a similar sigil at Warwick Castle, and it's like a bear that's been baited, like bear baiting, like they used to do in the medieval period. And Warwick Castle was the home of the Earl of Warwick, Richard Neville, and I think it was his coat of arms. I could be wrong, but if I remember my very overpriced visit to Warwick Castle, because it's like 30 quid a ticket, by the way. Not like great Northumbrian castles that you can visit for 15 quid. But if I remember that correctly, that's where it comes from. But still, a bizarre to focus on them on the interview as well, to zoom in on them, was an interesting choice.
It's absolutely splendid. And you know what else wasn't lost on me with that, James, is the fact that he's called Finchy. And again, for those who are avid watchers of The Office, one of the main characters is Finchy. So is it Finchy? Is it Brent? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, George Finch is this 19, and look, we're not mocking a 19-year-old for being in politics. We're mocking this 19-year-old for being in politics, right? Because this is a guy who ran his campaign on getting rid of the pride flag from the council headquarters, because that was the most pressing thing. And I can't remember how much they've spent, but it's more than they've spent on potholes so far in getting rid of the pride flag and on getting rid of DEI, so that neurodiverse children. He laughed at the thought of kids with autism wearing headphones in class to be able to deal with overstimulation. He laughed at all those things. This is a guy who's just a symbol of that hatred and bigotry that draws young men in, that Reform represent, because it gives you a safe space to be an absolute knob. That's what it does. It allows you to come in and be like, you know what it is? I'm going to hate on everybody and anything, and it's going to make me look important and powerful. The irony of doing that while simultaneously putting out an interview like that and thinking you look like a boss or some kind of a legend in office. I would bet any money that by the time that man's 27-year-old, he will be mortified that that's out there.
Yeah, and there's countless interviews like that where you can quite clearly see he's been put in a position where he's out of his depth, and he's got interviews where he's talking about food on a plate, and he's trying to like put together an analogy for immigration. He's like, if you go to a party and there's someone at the party and there's food on the plate, I can't even, honestly, pure nonsense. But and the guy, it's just like you said, it's very, very interesting how Farage has got a problem with career politicians.
Interesting.
Right. When it seems to me he spent a lot of his life in politics, and he's also very much willing to put a 19-year-old in charge of a county council, while also being against lowering the voting age, by the way. But exactly, I mean, that's a conversation for another day.
I'm just looking up how much George Finch earns as council leader, actually, because most council leaders get a fair whack. 65 grand he gets a year as a 19-year-old. And Farage is like bothered about people being on the take. He's bothered about people taking taxpayers' money when they're not entitled to it and not qualified. Great representation for that.
And do you know what it is, James? If there was a 19-year-old in charge of county council who was doing a great job and delivering results, and was a good representation, all I can see that he's bringing that county council is just clip after clip after clip of him just messing about, talking about non-issues, not really like thinking about what's the best for the county, but it's all about what makes Reform look best. It's we're gonna get rid of this nonsense. We're gonna do this. And it's just like he is channeling Nigel Farage.
It's the GB News strategy, isn't it? Wind up your viewers, get them wound up about pride flags, right? Because a multicolored rainbow flag outside of your council headquarters is clearly doing so much damage. Rather than potholes being fixed. So you would rather they spend 700 grand on getting rid of that and DEI strategies. And then the problem is when they realize that you end up with people like George Finch, who all look like George Finch and sound like George Finch, who are running the council, it's because there is no DEI. You're not giving anyone else a chance. You're not giving any of the talent that comes from working class communities. You're not giving any of the talent that comes from ethnic and diverse communities. You're not giving any of the talent that come from women and gender minorities. So what do you want? You want George Finch running the country? Because that's what you're going to get. Because that's, by the way, what we've had for the past, 1,000 years. There's just been white men of the same background, of the same privileged background, running everything. And I wouldn't say that it's worked particularly well for everyone else.
I tell you what, something else that I wish I'd lined up, James, when we're talking about councils, and this is important actually going into the May elections. Talking specifically about Reform and how they've run councils and some of the promises that Mr. Nigel Farage, maybe not directly, maybe not out of the horse's mouth, but certainly his party were promising cuts to council tax in the run-up to elections.
Yeah.
And have they delivered on that?
No.
Have the heck? Nowhere.
No.
Nowhere have they done that. And Mr. Nigel Farage, despite there being physical paper evidence and well-respected journalists, well-respected in their fields, right, calling them out and questioning them on it, point blank, just saying, no, you're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. And they've literally got the evidence in their hands. And it goes back to this place for me where, like, we get to a point where you idolize someone and you follow someone, and you believe in someone so much, even when the facts are right there in your face, even when they fit, like, there's physically evidence, we will cut your council taxes. But because Nigel Farage is saying that it isn't there, despite it being right in front of you, you believe Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how we get to that point and how do you break that? But I hope between whatever happens in May and whenever a general election comes round, that breaks down, because I'm going to take no pleasure whatsoever in a reform government not delivering for the country. No pleasure in it.
Nobody wants to say "I told you so" when that's happening, because at the same time, while we can see it a mile off, people have to learn these lessons, like they did with Brexit. To this day, I have everybody I know who voted to leave, and this was my issue with the Remain campaign, even though I worked on it, was the fact that they were ignoring the people who voted to leave and try and marginalize them. But even those people now who voted to leave will privately admit to me, I didn't know what I was on about. I didn't, it was a vote against what David Cameron was telling me to do. It's a vote against what the establishment was telling me to do. So, we end up with these monumental decisions being taken, like elections, that we are locked into for 4 years. Could you imagine taking a decision in your life, Craig, about where you live, like how much money you have to pay for something, all of these things that you then have to be committed to for 4 solid years without doing any due diligence in any of it? So listening to the lies Farage tells, when they're so very obviously lies, how do we get around the fact that people will still listen to it and say, well, yeah, but he's better than other people? It's because he's saying what they want to hear, which is easy answers to complicated solutions and problems. And that is the oldest trick in the book, mate.
Yeah, and that's how you get on board people. And again, this is something that I'd love to try and bridge that gap, James. But I think that's where traditional media obviously fills a lot of the gap. But reaching people who don't have the time to be constantly, like, following what's happening in politics, keeping themselves informed. There's so much stuff out there, and I'd love to be the place where people come. And I know it's not an easy challenge. I know that's what a lot of media are spending all of the resources doing. Yeah. But look, I'd just love to be able to offer that to people who are in our communities, and just to try and fill that in and be like, look, this is what's really happening. And I hope that's where we get with this podcast.
I think so. I think that's where we, if we want to start with that mission, we stick to it. It's admirable, isn't it? But I do think, because we've had let's be honest, we've had quite a depressing kind of conversation there about, politics and the state of it. We always like to uplift it towards the end of the show, don't we? Like to kind of make people feel a bit better. And I do think that I've got the ultimate solution for that. And obviously, Star of the Week is coming up. And I want to talk broadly around a subject as well, related to the Star of this week. So I think we should do Star of the Week. And a little birdie in the production team told me that there might be a little treat for us, similar to Nonsense of the Week, with Star of the Week. Is that right? Am I hearing that correctly?
This is IMAX. This is the full. This is the real deal. So prepare yourselves.
Jesus, man.
And I'll just get the production team now. I'm just messaging the production team now to cue
that in. Roll VT. Prepare to
Star
VT.
of the Week.
Presented by That's Class.
And there we have it. It's time. It is time.
Wow.
It's amazing how just like me it sounds, despite it being all CGI.
It's deep fake, mate. It's AI. It's what it can do now. It's incredible. But yeah, that was well worth the 200 grand you spent on it. I'm really pleased that you've bankrupted us over that. Thank you. But Star of the Week this week, and I'm really proud with this one, because you did one the other week that was close to your heart. This is a bit of a similar one, close to my heart. It is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Packham, right?
Round of
Now,
applause.
Chris Packham, I think, is a symbol of positive masculinity unlike any other, right? Biggest green flag, loving animals. The love of animals, caring for animals, conservation of wildlife, I think is the biggest green flag. I think it shows that you care deeply about our planet and the people on it. Being able to be committed to your views despite being ridiculed and criticized, but being confident and sticking to your values, something that Chris Packham does all the day. The right-wing media love to attack this guy, and he has presented programs like Spring Watch, Autumn Watch on the BBC. And Chris is not just an excellent conservationist and environmentalist, but he's also actually a really good communicator. And I can tell you why that is. It's because he's autistic. And Chris has done a huge amount for autism and neurodiversity. He's done documentaries on it, which a lot of people probably will have seen on the BBC. And he talks about it regularly. And Chris is, for me, I see a lot of similarities between how his brain works and how my brain worked when I was growing up and feeling different, feeling marginalized, feeling like you were just weird and very different. And I got the same diagnosis as Chris when I was 20 of Asperger's at the time, now just autism as it's called. And Chris has chosen to dedicate his life to animals and to the conservation, especially of birds. And he does a huge amount in that work. So I thought, he's been in the newspapers this past week again, committing to fight on against politicians who will not take the environment seriously. And there are so many little freaks out there like me, little weirdos who look up to people like Chris, because we like going on nature walks. We like collecting, kind of stones and rocks and being outside. I know you love doing it as well, mate, being out and about, being kind of in nature, really loving your environment. And there's so many people like that who I know who love birds, who love insects, who really look up to people like Chris. And he is a voice for those of us who want to preserve nature and protect it. So Chris Packham is our star of the week. I'll give him a
round of applause, everybody.
Round of
And I think
applause,
that's a
yeah.
fantastic. I think that's a fantastic contribution, James. I'm not sure about the freaks and weirdos because I feel like there's a lot more than that. I'm not quite sure what the word is, but there's some very valuable. I think you're downplaying yourself there massively. But
well, that's it. But
no,
I mean,
I think-
it's more those people who feel marginalized, who kind of, because Chris always said that he felt he was too weird for TV and too weird to be in broadcasting. And it's the way society makes it. Of course, people own those terms now as a sense of ownership. But really, neurodiversity is a very common thing. It's, it's at the beating heart of society. So many neurodiverse people.
100%, James. I think it's honestly, I think this could be a full podcast that we give to this. But I've just done the very, very first step in trying to get an ADHD assessment because I'm pretty sure looking back at my childhood and everything and the way that I live my life now that something going on there. I'm pretty sure there's ADHD, and I think it would help me to understand that if I was to get a diagnosis for it,
Definitely.
And actually, I was actually tempted. It'd be interesting because I was tempted to sort of document that process with me starting it now.
That would be great.
So much because I'll be totally honest, right? There is a thing that puts me off doing it, and it's coming across oh, he's only doing it because he wants to oh the ADHD, of course. But I think documenting it in spite of that. In actually it'd be no, actually, because I know for a fact there's so many people out there, and I think jokes can be made about ADHD. I think people don't take it seriously, but it massively affects how you live your life, and it affects really different people in different ways. There's a reason why it's a spectrum, isn't it? And I just think it's so important that you can sit and have that conversation and talk about it. And it's not like anything strange, And I actually, like you said, I can guarantee there's a lot more people out there experiencing it and who have it than what they realize. And that one more thing on it, James, right?
Yeah.
You always hear this thing, oh, nobody had it back in the day. No, it wasn't a thing back in my day. Yeah, it wasn't a thing back in your day, but maybe that's a contributor as to why male suicide is such an issue, because you don't understand yourself. All these different things. Oh, mental health wasn't a problem back in my day. Yes, but look what happens.
Yeah.
Look what happens. Look at all the people that struggle So let's stop pretending that we nailed it
We
in
used to have
1992 because we didn't.
Yeah, we used to have institutions packed full of people because they couldn't be in society, right? Because they didn't, especially women, the amount of diagnosis of hysteria, which isn't a real thing, by the way. So that could have been anything and everything from bipolar to ADHD, but it was women who couldn't function in society. And the biggest challenge with neurodiversity is not neurodiversity itself. It does not cause any challenges by itself. What causes the challenge is the way we've structured society around being neurotypical, right? So we've structured that, and then we expect those people to be able to function. I'm very lucky. I've got the freedom from that now. I work for myself. I work in my own time scale. If I didn't do that, mate, I wouldn't be in a job longer than 6 months, because the day that I wake up and go, nah, it is today, I can't do it. I'm gonna be in bed till 11, or I'm gonna be up all night working. And then no employer wants you to work all night. They want you to work during the day between these set hours that they've decided are normal. And if your brain doesn't function on that pattern, then, so be it. But you're right. To a lot of people, it sounds like, an identity politics thing or whatever. But it's not. It's just that we are balancing the books after thousands of years of not acknowledging this very common occurrence. So, yeah. But one other thing before we finish on the Chris Packham relevance that I wanted to mention.
Yes.
Good news story for everyone. And we are biased, being Northumbrian, even though we're not both necessarily in Northumberland all the time. I'm up here in Edinburgh now. I saw the fantastic news about the golden eagle. Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us what's going on with that?
Well, I actually initially seen it on social media. I think there's been like £1 million set aside by the government to sort of
nice
help reintroduce. I don't quite know in what way. I'm guessing there's like they'll assign resources to make a habitat safe, or I'm not across that, I'll be totally honest. But what I do know, right, is that seeing golden eagles back in Northumberland, back in England, I believe they're already starting to naturally cross across the border from Scotland down into England, which is really cool. But here's a little stat, right? Here's a little stat for everyone at home. The gold, because again, the research team has been in overdrive. One of the fastest animals on our Earth at 200 mile an hour, right? 200 mile an hour dives, and it can see a rabbit moving from 3 miles away. Now, what a creature! That's incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah.
And just to see that back in the UK, back in England, back in Northumberland, incredible. I mean, my house backs onto a field here.
You got a pair,
a few owls,
a nesting pair. You might have them soon enough.
Well, I don't want them getting too close. Might take my daughter off. But in fact, actually, because there's actually been some resistance from what I've seen. Farmers putting up. Yeah, I know. But
it always annoys me.
Livestock and stuff. So
yeah, look, I understand it. Farmers do. Look, me and the farming community on the best of terms. After I was very supportive of paying more inheritance tax, yeah, they all went Alan Partridge on me. But the thing is, I really think when it comes to conservation and wildlife, I understand the frustration, but it's the same with the beavers in Scotland. The reintroduction was causing flooding of the land. That's what they do. You're not going to stop a beaver building dams and introducing them here, reintroducing them. I would have everything reintroduced, mate. I'd be letting bears and foxes and wolves loose in the city centre in Glasgow if I could. I would have us rewilded tomorrow because I love the idea. And the lynx was one of the big cats we're going to bring back to Northumberland. I don't know how that's going in Kielder, but it's great to see the golden eagle because there's lots of people are becoming very keen on birding and bird watching and stuff like that. And I'm sure it's not just an age thing. I'm sure it's nothing to do with the fact I'm in my 30s now, but I think it's getting more popular now with people to go out and really appreciate nature.
And I think we spoke about the negatives of the internet. I think one of the positives of the internet and social media is you see people, posting and building a social media presence through these sorts of things. I think it inspires other people to then go and do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so when this podcast takes off, James, it sounds like with your, wanting to reintroduce things, it's going to be Jurassic Park kicking off up near Edinburgh.
Don't get me started on dinosaurs, mate. I love dinosaurs. I mean, a lot of my dinosaur books there. In a classic, not cliche autism fashion at all. There are books about trains and dinosaurs on my bookshelf.
You can be the Chris Packham of dinosaurs. That's
Oh, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. I'll be on it. Listen, if I can make the case for Ankylosaurus being the greatest dinosaur around, I'll make it. But let's not get into that tonight. It's been a great episode, mate. I think we've waded through a huge amount of news and developments from today. There'll be a lot more to talk about next week because will the Prime Minister still be in post? I think so, but we never know. We never know. So we'll keep on top of it. But thank you everyone for watching. It's been a great episode.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone as well for, we've got some regular listeners and watchers now, so it's really nice. And also, hopefully, because I know, and I really appreciate everyone sticking in with the old audio that has been very much up and down on my end. I am hoping, I am praying. I got a confirmation message from my wife to say thumbs up, we are okay. So fingers crossed, this is the breakthrough week. But thanks everyone again for watching, and that has been That's
class.
See you next week, everybody.
Did we sync it? Let's see.
Pretty much.
See you next week, mate.